Calling to order the regular meeting of the Hubbardston Planning Board. It is 6:41 p.m. and I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. Hubbardston Planning Board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. This meeting is being held both in person and virtually through Microsoft Teams, pursuant to Section 20 of the Acts of 2021, allowing public meetings to be conducted remotely so that board and committee members, as well as members of the public, can participate remotely. We did have a little bit of an issue with the agenda on the website directing to the wrong meeting link for Teams. So we have that meeting open in addition to the meeting that was published in the calendar. So if any folks attempt to join through that other published link, we'll pick them up and direct them to the correct one. So with that said, recognizing we have a quorum, which includes myself, Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Steiger, and then absent from the meeting we have Mr. Holman and Mr. Demalia. Our associate member also sends his regrets of not being able to make it tonight, but he did present comment to the town planner in lieu of being at tonight's meeting, which our town planner will present to us. So with that, do we have anybody online or in the room to comment about anything that's not on the agenda? All right, none in the room, and it does not look like we have anybody online. All right, so moving forward into the acceptance of the previous minutes. The minutes have been provided to the board through the meeting link and also in the board's packets. The previous meeting was February 19th. So our usual process for handling this is to do a motion and then handle corrections through friendly amendments. With that said, would somebody like to make a motion? I think you might have made a motion, Francois, but you're muted.
My apologies. Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
And do we have a second, Mr. Carpenter?
I will second that.
Excellent. And with that said, any corrections or adjustments to the minutes?
None from me.
No.
All right. Hearing none, I'm calling a vote, and the vote is by roll call because we have members who are participating online. Mr. Steiger?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. The minutes are accepted. I did have one administrative question on this.
Mm-hmm.
Did you report back to Sean and the town clerk on the selections that we made for all the committees?
Yes.
Okay. Because the select board's going to have to take action on that.
Yes, I've asked them to add the appointments to their next agenda.
Oh, nice. I'll get to visit a select board meeting. One that might be a little contentious. So, all right, moving forward, we have the planner's report. And for the planner's report, since most of the meeting tonight is actually going to be about the sandpit overlay, Alec, can you just give us a brief update on what's going on currently with our grant requests?
So it's my understanding that either tomorrow or Friday, MRPC will be meeting to review the first round of submissions for DLTA projects. Shortly thereafter, we should get a response back on our application. On that front, I did reach out to the state's office, Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, to confirm on our second grant award. I haven't seen a fully executed contract back, so I did check in with them prior to this meeting just to confirm, waiting for a response back, and I'll probably have that by the end of the week. They're obviously pretty busy right now just finalizing those last contracts, but do believe we're still on track to start our procurement process in March on the 2 grant awarded projects, should you decide to go that route. Otherwise, just waiting for MRPC's response.
All right. Anything else in the planner's report?
Nope, nothing additional.
Okay. Well then, moving on in the agenda, we have no additional new business, so we're going to go right into old business. And Alec, if you would, I would like it if you could help facilitate some of the discussion here, and probably a good place to start is some of the feedback from Mark. So just to catch everybody up, in order to give everybody an opportunity to get their questions in a way that's obviously consistent with the open meeting law, we put out an invitation for folks to connect with Alec to deliver some of their questions ahead of time. And Mr. Kresge took Alec up on that offer and had some specific feedback to add to the project. And I know that Mr. Carpenter had also sent some information over. So if you could help facilitate the conversation, some alignment around those questions would be helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to do so. So I've seen Alan's comment and feedback come in as well, and it's in contrast to Mark's feedback, not in the form of the content itself, but in the scope of it. So when Associate Member Kresge and I met, he had some higher level conversations and questions that I do think it's of value for the board to discuss and consider. Alan, you have very good technical feedback as well that I think we can incorporate into the article in various ways to continue helping to improve it. So board member or Associate Member Kresge and I only met for about 15-20 minutes at most just to discuss those questions he had at a higher level. My recommendation was to bring it back to the whole board because it's not something that I as a planner individually can work out and resolve. But the two elements in particular, first was the interaction of this overlay district with the aquifer favorability district, which, as you'll know, is an aquifer protection district. The intent and purpose of that district is to more tightly regulate, or in some cases outzone, certain use types that are seen or perceived to have an impact to aquifers, those being the water that we might draw down for drinking purposes. I believe it's Gardner to the north, in fact, does draw from the overall watershed and from that aquifer. So the question in this case was being, in this overlay district, are there certain uses that maybe are being allowed when they really shouldn't be? That being that it could supersede that aquifer favorability district. So it bears having a discussion on the value of this overlay district where it might overlap or in that case supersede the aquifer favorability district. You as a board should discuss whether you think that in some terms the juice is worth the squeeze here. You know, this is an area that has been tagged as possible future development. That's what this district would do. And should we reevaluate those use tables or have a discussion as to whether there is enough value to supersede the aquifer favorability district? And the second comment he had, and again, a larger area of discussion, is over the depth of public engagement that was done and consideration of the existing boundaries to the proposed district. So whether the proposed district boundaries as we've developed it so far and as the working group brought forward with the consultant, whether those should be expanded, whether any of the neighboring parcel owners were contacted to discuss whether they have an interest, which to the best of my knowledge, there was no individual outreach to the adjacent parcels, but nonetheless, do we want to do a level of outreach to adjacent parcels to see if there's any value in expanding the proposed overlay district? Both, I think, are good points for the board as a whole to discuss. I think you as a team should come up with a decision as to whether you want to do additional outreach and consider expanding. And then I do think it's good for the team as a whole to decide that this district is something we want to pursue, even if certain uses might overlap or supersede the aquifer favorability district. So.
Why don't we take it one at a time off of that? So let's go with the easy one first for the abutting landowners. What's everybody's thoughts around that?
I think it's inevitable that it'll be brought up in town meeting discussions. I think it would be appropriate to do it if it's not terribly time intensive.
I would agree. I think that anybody who is close to that area will reasonably be affected in one way or the other. And so I would agree we should figure out a way in which we can extend the communication with them and incorporate any feedback that they may wish to present.
I think in retrospect, I think people have focused on the Rieta property as one example of a potential extension of the proposed district. I don't know, I've asked the question myself about the properties on the other side of 68 and had learned that those uses are not, or that those properties wouldn't be appropriate to include, but I don't have any direct knowledge of that.
Yeah, the railroad, big railroad easement running through there, right after all the
Yeah.
properties that are immediately on the road. So
Yeah, that's a killer.
So the question here is, well, it sounds like we're all on the same page on at least requesting feedback. I don't think we necessarily need to do like another stakeholder session. We can just solicit feedback. How do we ultimately want to do that, and how far do we want to extend it? I don't know, Alec, do you have a recommendation on what would be a fair and reasonable way to do that?
Yeah, so there's two approaches. Well, let's start with the geographic element. There's two approaches. You can either go a depth of one parcel or two parcels out. That's usually a safe way to stagger things. You could also, rather than going by a parcel depth, because that might affect the lines, but it also comes down to how you want your zoning map to look as a whole. You could do a simple buffer line. You could say every parcel within 500 feet, not including the right-of-way, so you'd skip however many feet of the right-of-way. 500 feet of the district boundaries, you would do a direct mailing to, or you would do door knocking to as outreach and have them come in. That is a very clean and simple way to do it. Just using Access GIS in the assessor's office, you can just generate that list super quick, super simple. But what that does risk doing is you're going to split some parcels. So you're going to have, because that line's not perfect, if you were to say that's the boundary you're going to follow, then you would have some split zone parcels moving forward. Split zone parcels are a little bit harder to regulate, they're harder to enforce. And so that's why sometimes just saying we're only going to go out one parcel or we're only going to go out two parcels, that can be a little bit easier because then you're basing it on the parcel lines themselves. But left to the board's discretion. Do you want a zoning map with split parcels, or do you want an overlay district that isn't going to have as pretty straight lines?
I don't really have a preference. Does anybody else?
No. I mean, from my perspective is I'd like personally, if we take the one parcel idea, it basically goes all around and says, okay, fine, everybody who is joining it at the next parcel, I think that would include pretty much everybody that we need to incorporate, and gets away with this whole 500 feet criteria. I think it's simpler that way, and it is more inclusive, and I think it is also fairer because individual parcels that are abutting this zone are going to be impacted one way or the other. And so, regardless as to whether or not you're, within 500 feet or not, I think it's that extra parcel that we probably should be looking at. That's my opinion. I think maybe what we can do is why don't we come up with a list of all of the parcels and then figure out by looking at, if we could look at it from a GIS perspective, we may therefore see that it is fairly all-inclusive. If we take that approach first.
I mean, from a feedback standpoint, I don't know, are we getting ahead of the process here? Like, I don't know that getting feedback from somebody is essentially the same thing as asking if they want to join the zoning. I think the first step is getting the feedback. We can ask that question in there, because I also don't want to create the expectation with people that if they're like, oh yeah, just sign me up for that zoning, that we're going to make that as a decision. So, because it might not make sense for some of the parcels, like we need to ultimately do what the best thing for the town is here. So I don't think we necessarily have to worry about that split zoning issue or anything like that. We just need to get back feedback from immediate abutters. And then, depending on what that feedback is, then I think we have a different conversation.
That's fair.
All right, so as far as the process for that, is that something that you guys can just handle in the office? And do we want to just ask them to attend a meeting, or do we want to give them a survey, or what's the best way to do that?
So for many of those individuals, it might be the first time they're hearing about this. So I don't think a survey would be the most successful way. I think a survey opens the door to a lot more questions than answers. And in that case, probably more negative feedback than it necessarily deserves. The best way to probably go about doing this is a simple focus group setting. We'll plot it out very quickly. We'll see the total number we get. My assumption is we're probably going to land somewhere between, I'm going to say maybe 15 to 25 people or individuals, parcels. A couple of those might be duplicates. And I would not expect all of them to actually respond, even if we did a direct mailing to their house, which might be the best solution here. Mm-hmm. So in all likelihood, a simple focus group could be enough. The question then becomes, do you want to do that live at a meeting, or would you like myself and or one of the consultants, because it's probably within scope. We can probably have one of the consultants come redo one of their presentations on a very brief basis and then be available to assist in answering questions. That does just mean potentially modifying the scope of services. So which do you prefer? Live at a meeting or simple focus group by staff and a 1 to 2 page memo with results attached to that?
I like focus group by staff. How does everybody else feel?
Sounds right. As Francois said, the people have a stake in this no matter which way it goes, and we'll build some bridges that, maybe help people feel more comfortable about it when it comes up for a vote in a town meeting.
Okay. All right, so let's do it.
Fantastic. I will, Leanne, I'll probably ask you to help me out a little bit on the preparing the mailing and getting that sent out, but I will give you all the resources you need to get that squared away. And I will try to fire that off. You guys aren't open Friday, so I'll fire that off and we can send it out first thing next week and try to get something, we'll get something on the books very, very shortly. I just got to look at the calendar real quick, but we'll get that going.
Sounds good.
Just a, I guess, IT note. I was trying to go into the 2026 meetings folders, just to look through some of the stuff we had previously talked about on this. I don't have access to the 2026 meeting folders anymore.
Alan had trouble with it too, and I resent it to him and it worked, so I will do that for you.
Sounds good. Yeah, I just have 2025 meetings, email attachments, and Google Drive import available to me in the folder.
Interesting. Are you on SharePoint or the Drive?
SharePoint. I tried SharePoint and OneDrive. And
Okay.
They both look the same.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
I know it's on OneDrive, I'm not sure about SharePoint.
Okay. So, all right. There was a second question there from that. Ellie, can you bring us back through what that question was?
Yeah, so that question relies on some of the uses that are proposed in this and their interaction with the Aquifer Favorability District. So quick recap, and we briefly touched upon it at the last meeting. The Aquifer Favorability District is meant to zone out or more heavily regulate certain use types that are seen, perceived, or proven to be negatively impactful to the aquifers that we draw our water from. In this case, just one example is multifamily housing. It's something that's perceived in your new sandpit overlay zone, but multifamily housing structures are disallowed in the Aquifer Favorability District. So the question becomes here, is there enough value in the interaction? Do we think that those uses should be removed so that it's not necessarily a superseding district, or do we think the need for development in this case is important enough to consider?
Let's get some discussion from the board.
Are there any controls or constraints that we can put on the design or the intensity of development that mitigate that conflict? I was concerned that, certain earth movement might occur like we heard about at the last meeting where someone wants to do some dredging, that kind of thing. Are there certain activities that can be precluded from the zone? Or will that essentially scuttle the whole concept of mixed-use development? I'm not expert enough in the aquifer protection area to know if there are certain things that can be done much like you do in wetlands protection in construction projects.
Alec, do you have any comment or response on that?
Apologies, I'm taking notes while I go too, so if you hear me pause like that and look away, it's because I'm scribbling. And scribbling's an accurate description of my handwriting too. It's not so much the activities themselves. The Aquifer Favorability District is really about uses themselves. And so a key example, and I jump right back to it, is the multifamily residential structures, just as one example. There are other items in here, hotel or motel. I just want to jump back real quick. Let's see. Hotel, motel, inn are allowed under special permit, and those are prohibited uses in the Aquifer Favorability Protection District.
So, I guess to cut to the point on this, the whole point is to enable some degree of multifamily housing here. So, to the extent that there needs to be adjustment in order to enable that so that we can do open space residential developments in a way that's meaningful, where we can have increased density in exchange for permanently protecting some of the lands, we need to either make this rule dominant, or we need to adjust the aquifer favorability. I mean, what other way is there to look at it?
Who actually established the Aquifer Favorability Protection District, and who controls that? Any modification there too?
We do.
The planning board is.
Yep.
And what is the process by which, is it another town meeting article?
Yeah.
And what are the current bounds of that Aquifer Protection District? Do they encompass everything that's we're talking about, or just a portion of it?
So,
I am, Mr. Chairperson, I'm going through the consultant slideshow to actually try and pull up a good visual of it, because it's not the entirety of the proposed district that's within it. It's just, I'm not seeing a great visual that I can really project for everybody. So bear with me if you want to go ahead and start answering that question. I'll try to find a visual representation as well.
I was just going to say that we have, the bylaw covers the whole town, but it's enforced essentially in an overlay. Yeah, I can't get into the other 2026 meetings, so I can't bring it up.
You want me to pull it up here?
Yeah, if you can.
When was that district established?
2017.
Anybody know?
The plans from
I'm
places,
sorry?
the plans from places were from 2017.
Yeah, the most recent updated map was 2017.
On what basis was this established? Were there surveys, hydrological studies done? I mean, what was the basis on which that was originally done?
I believe there were some studies and maps that it's based on. There's, I believe, a layer in GIS that relates to some of that, but Bill Murray, who is the town's consultant, could certainly talk about that in additional depth.
Is there any chance any of the criteria or the properties of the aquifer have changed in the last 10 years?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is the map, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's a little bit small.
Let me see if I can enlarge that.
Leanne, is that from the report?
Yes,
Jump over to that, then take a look over there.
it's page 16.
I don't know that any of those are the. Which shade is the aquifer, though?
The light green is the medium yield aquifer. It's in the packet. I also included the same slideshow in tonight's packet. It's page 16. I can
So, wetland protection, how is that a part of the aquifer protection district, or is it just its own zone?
Those are two separate elements. So wetland protection is governed by the Wetlands Protection Act and the CONSCOM itself. Oh, sorry, you said wellhead protection.
I said
protection.
wellhead, yeah. The
Yeah,
pink
I
area
apologize.
on this map, yeah. I mean, I look at the green zone and I think, well, maybe there need to be some specific controls relevant to that area, but if the whole pink area needs additional mitigation measures, then it becomes kind of impractical. And whose wellhead are we protecting? Is this Gardner, or is it relevant to everyone who's abutting this property?
Do you want me to pull up the fire protection map?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's Gardner, and then there is a someday potential one for us.
No, I have it.
Does anyone have any documentation around the original 2017 establishment of this district?
In all fairness and all frankness, I mean, I had requested from Leanne a copy of this map, and the map was sent to me. And it's a picture representation with the lots of the land, but really very little information other than what I have just indicated. It might behoove us, and I know that sometimes it can be difficult to get Mr. Bill Murray, given how busy he is. But it may behoove us to have him come back and refresh our memories in regards to what the map represents. I know I'm just looking around quickly, and it says there's wellhead protection areas described in mass.gov. We can probably get some more and additional information for the purposes of explaining what you had asked, Alan. But I honestly believe that this aquifer map it's probably still very good. The only problem I have with it is that there's really little to no information other than the pictorial representation of it. And I would strongly suggest that we have Mr. Murray come back and provide us with an explanation of this here. I think most of us were not even part of the planning board at the time, and this was delivered to the planning board.
Leanne, do you know what the status of our revolving funds account is? Because I know there were some questions about that.
We still don't have accurate data from the accountant. She should be finishing up in the next couple weeks, but there are funds available in there. I'm just not 100% sure that what I have is reflected accurately with what the accountant has.
Yeah, we should have, I think
it's a couple $1,000.
Yeah, like 3,600 or something like that. So theoretically, we have funding for a couple hours. Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do that. I mean, I wouldn't be.
Francois, can you share that map there with me or with us?
Leanne, you have that up on the screen, right?
Yeah, this is,
Oh.
I just zoomed it into the
Yeah.
corner that we were looking at, but that's the,
Okay. Could you email it
All
to
within
us?
the Yale wheel.
yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand, I guess we have to get drilled down a little bit here, no pun intended, but what's a high yield versus a medium yield versus a low yield? Most of this area looks like a low yield and a medium yield. What-
That is in reference to the type of well that can go there. High yield being large municipal wells. Because some of this stems back from when the town was looking at feasibility for doing a water system and sewer system for downtown.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I want to say in like 2017, it came back at like $20 million. So I can only imagine what it is in 2026 dollars. But there is
And
actually...
based on the map that I apologize, was talking over you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, there is an actual feasibility report that came out of that I'm sure we can put our hands on and find for everyone.
I'm looking
So,
at this,
Mr. Chairperson.
It does look like most of if the area that we are looking at is really what is considered to be a low yield. There's a small section which is a medium yield, right north of Pitcherville Road.
So, Mr. Chairperson, based on this discussion, do you want me to go ahead and invite Bill Murray to your next meeting of the board?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I will. I have to connect on him with a couple things, so I will add that there.
Can I make a suggestion, and that is that if Mr. Murray still has material that he shared other than just the map itself, if he can send that also before we meet with him, so that we can acquaint ourselves with that information, that will be, in my opinion, very helpful.
I will ask him to forward any of the original reference materials, and they do keep a very detailed file system, so I imagine he probably has some of that available.
That's great.
All right, so we have an action item for that one. What next was on the list?
So the next ones I have are all feedback from Alan, really driven and technical feedback. Alan, do you want to go through your draft? Do you want to go through some of those items? And then I saw as well and responded, you had sent a couple more via email. Do you want to start with your draft that's in the drive, and then we can incorporate the additional ones afterwards?
I'd like to start at the top, at sort of high level, if you don't mind, but in the preamble sections 2 and 3 of the draft document, I was looking specifically at section 2B, which discusses the applicability of the R2GO. And for clarity, I thought maybe some additional wording might be helpful. Something that says like the following, subject to change, of course. R2GO is an overlay zoning district which is superimposed on a portion of the existing ag-res zoning district, as shown in the appended zoning map, or attached here to whatever. The R2GO district is intended to allow for alternative uses within this zone in conformance with the regulations herein. Okay, so it's kind of vanilla, boilerplate, but maybe it's helpful to just orient the reader who's unacquainted with what this is all about. What were your thoughts, Alec, about that? Oops, I can't hear you. You're muted.
You'd think after years of doing these Zoom and Teams meetings, I'd remember to unmute myself, but still not quite there. I think that what this helps do is it softens the language itself, which whenever you're proposing something that's commercially friendly on town meeting floor, you might receive feedback that people are nervous or trepidatious about the impact, so to speak. I think the second sentence you proposed here, it fits well with, I don't want to on a note the right bullet point. It's item B under applicability has similar language. So you'll see RTGO is a district superimposed on the existing underlying zoning district.
Yeah.
When there is a conflict, stricter regulations will prevail. I think adding the additional language you added to the first paragraph helps emphasize the point that we're not forcing anyone to do anything with their land. This is additional options for those landowners, which helps satisfy some on the floor.
My motivation in this was in part to orient the reader to what this is all about. But I also bristled a little bit at the idea of using the word superseded, and rather would prefer the terms alternative uses, because I kind of see these as independent uses and standards, which will be applied only dependent upon what type of application is submitted, not necessarily superseding one of the other. I was a little worried about densities of housing and so forth, and someone's being confused that an ag-res zone, requiring 80,000 square feet, supersedes a single-family home. And I noted that your tables have lots of little footnotes now, which are fine, which, carve out all the exceptions. But indeed, it's really an alternative zone, which is operating independently of the underlying district. Am I wrong about that? Or
The table of uses that's proposed here?
that the uses and the standards are independently applied between ag-res and R2GO. That's the only thing that a superseded word kind of concerned me about. Anyway, that's one thought. The other thought is, I think that this is a complex document, and there are many moving parts. There are many provisions for bonuses, for example, different standards for setbacks and sidelines and buffers. I think that it would behoove us to include in section 3 a second sentence before the part around the right or special permit requirements that states something like the following. The planning board suggests that the applicant present a preliminary conceptual plan at a planning board meeting for discussion regarding the development standards and type of review to be applied upon submission of the formal development plan. This concept is not unusual in planning of subdivisions and others to have what you'd call a draft plan or a conceptual plan brought out, to elicit feedback from the board about, how will you review and approach this? Will this be considered open space? Will this be considered, PUD? Will this be considered neighborhood mixed use? What are the dimensional and other requirements that are applied to that? And I thought we're the ones who are most familiar with this, and I don't want to dismiss the expertise of the commissioner, the building commissioner, but I think just having someone come in cold with a plan that might be by the table as a matter of right without having a preliminary discussion with the planning board might be a little too less controlled or less directed, I should say. And perhaps the applicant themselves will be happier getting some guidance at an early stage through a preliminary review before going to the building commissioner. Anyway, what are your thoughts about that, guys?
I'm not specifically opposed to site plan reviews. I mean, this hasn't been a super busy year, like anything would be good. But there have been super busy years, but this hasn't been one of them. Because essentially, if it's a site plan review, it's not like we can get denied anyway, so it doesn't really impact whether or not somebody can do it as right. We can't potentially soft negotiate criteria out of it and express our feelings.
So, Mr. Chairperson, if I can offer one reminder to the board. So there's a provision in this proposed overlay entitled multi-building lots. And it says that lots may have more than one principal building on a single lot, provided open space setbacks are maintained, and provided the planning board finds through site plan review that safe and convenient access will be provided to all structures. So any lot that would have multiple structures on it does trigger your site plan review process, which it's not unheard of that site plan review in and itself, you can do a pre-development meeting, so to speak, with an applicant. You just want to put simple parameters around that so that both the applicant and the public understand if that's a hearing process that you provide notice, or if that's just the applicant comes in, provides their submission, and has a discussion with the board in an open public meeting.
So, thoughts?
Well, I don't think it's terribly overburdensome to anyone who's interested in a large development to have a preliminary conceptual plan discussion with the board, but that's what motivated me to propose it to begin with.
And I would concur with that too.
So then, Mr. Chairperson, if I could offer to the board, unlike a typical public hearing, which you would do for site plan review, for a pre-development like this, you do want to provide some advance notice. You, the board, want to make sure you have enough time to digest the materials, and you want to make sure the public has an opportunity to see and be aware this is coming in. To save costs back to the applicant, I don't know that necessarily a direct mailing to all abutters is necessary for pre-development, but I would recommend probably the typical language of posting in a conspicuous place for at least 14 days prior to the date of public meeting or to the scheduled public meeting. So what that means is we would post on the website the notice that this meeting would be happening, and that would be a topic for discussion to be listed on the agenda formally at the time of publication. So that way it gives everyone advance notice. It gives you at least 2 weeks with the materials so you can sit on it and think before you get to the meeting. Does that sound good?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, well, my other comments are kind of minutia, but under the planned unit development option, we have single-family detached homes at 4 units per acre. That's like the equivalent of about 10,000 or 11,000 square feet per lot. It sounds like too much, too dense to me, but. Two units per acre is like single family detached.
But that is the scenario where we're looking to have increased density for the purpose of preserving other spaces in it.
Well, I guess I see the purpose for townhouses or, attached multifamily units like quadplexes and duplexes. I'm not sure I see it for the single-family homes, though. An attached 4-unit townhome probably takes, I don't know, I'm going to guess a half an acre, probably leaving a good portion undeveloped. Whereas with single-family homes, if you're going to have sidelines, backlines, driveways, etc., I don't know if it's fitting with the idea of a PUD and higher density. That's all. Pretty small matter, but I suspect that a prospective developer will figure that out quickly and probably not opt for that kind of construction.
Mr. Chairperson, would it be valuable for the board if we attempted to physically model what that looks like, the 4 units per acre for single family detached, the 8 units? Apologies, I lost my spot. Would it be helpful to physically model out what some of these would look like in a simple SketchUp?
Yeah.
I agree, yeah.
Now, I make no promises. I'm not an architect, but I do know how to use SketchUp, so I can put boxes on a 3D plan set.
Okay, sounds good. My other question has to do with section 7. Oh no, the perimeter buffer was 75 feet. That's an awful lot. I don't know if that's excessive, but I didn't like the idea when it was 25 or 30 before. I wonder 40 to 50 feet is a sufficient buffer if it's vegetated. Remembering that there will be rear and sideline setbacks as well for the individual buildings on the lot which is adjacent to any butter. So if you have a 40-foot sort of buffer zone and you have a 25-foot side setback and a 50-foot or 25-foot rear setback, you're talking still, in excess of 65 to 70 feet between a new structure and the abutting sideline, property line. Okay.
That's another really good one. Sorry to cut you off there, Alan. That's another really good one that we can model without even having to throw up 3D structures. We could simply model the square footage and then model the dimensions to show the available space left over.
Okay, thank you. That'd be great. I still don't, in section 7 in the open space residential, I wish it would be relabeled something different, honestly, because I'm afraid it'll be by the first sentence of that whole section, it kind of loops us back into Article 16 of the existing zoning bylaws, which, as I've read it, doesn't allow one to really put any more units in the parcel than would be allowed if they develop single-family homes in the same area. So it really doesn't allow, it may allow setting aside certain sensitive areas, but it doesn't really add units. But that's just a question I have as to, is it helpful to link it to Article 16, or can it work on its own under the provisions that are already outlined here? which I thought were all reasonable with the appropriate bonuses if someone were to build affordable housing or protected resources or set aside open space. I'm just not sure that Article 16 adds anything to it. Those were all my comments. Oh, no, one more. After the hearing we had last meeting, I've become concerned about earth movement. In particular, now that we're talking about aquifer protection, I wonder if there shouldn't be some language in here with respect to earth movement below the seasonal high groundwater level, or prohibitions against such, for those abutting who have private wells and may be concerned. What does that do? Is that unrealistic?
Yeah.
Dredging isn't one of the things I'm favorable to if I'm in a butter.
Oh, yeah, I'll defer to Alec on that.
I'd have to give another read back to this section. I haven't considered that in the context of it. I've been considering mostly the permanent uses.
Maybe it's related to the question that we discussed earlier about mitigation measures or protections to the aquifer that might address some of the concerns that Mark raised. And others raised at the open meetings I attended way back at the beginning of the year. No, last fall.
Okay. So, was there anything else left there, Alec, that you needed to potentially respond to? Or is that all under consideration stuff?
I'm fine.
All right, so.
Whatever Alec wants to do.
Yeah. All right, did you have any additional comments on Elle's thoughts, Alec?
No, nothing at this time. I've got my note document and I've got to go back and come back with a few things.
Okay. Then, Francois, did you have anything else to add to the discussion? Okay. So
No, I think,
just to make
Go
sure
ahead.
we're capturing the action items here. So Alec, you're gonna take a look at this again with some of the feedback that you just received. You're gonna work with Leanne to do some outreach to some of the neighboring folks to the parcel. And then we're also gonna reach out to Mr. Murray and see if we can get some more history on the aquifer and what our thoughts are around that. Okay. Anything else on this discussion item?
Nope.
All right.
nope.
We're getting there slowly. So, next on the agenda is administrative matters and matters not reasonably anticipated by chair. There is one matter there, which is our annual report. This is our first time going through it with our current staff configuration, so just wanted to put the draft report in front of the board. It is in the packet and also been made available to folks online. So normally we list a whole bunch of special permits and stuff that I've worked on. There haven't been that many. We have had a bunch of bylaw updates. I'm likely going to add a little bit of a forward to this, but other than that, I think it looks pretty good. Does anybody else have any thoughts about it or anything else we should?
Just a small little typo, and that is under the amendment of, to the Town Hubbardston zoning bylaws completed, the last bullet item. It should really say update of article, not artile 9. There's a C missing there.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anything else on it?
No,
Like I said, I think in the past I've usually put like a little forward on top of it as chair. I think Alec used to do the same. I'll take not Alec, Alice. I'll take a quick look at that and get something to you within the next day. All right, so with that, does anybody else have anything that does not otherwise appear on the agenda that they want to bring to the board's attention?
well, I acknowledge that Alec is trying to set up a discussion with the work group on the accessory use front.
Oh, yes, yep. Anything you want to add to that, Alec, other than it's in the process?
No, we were trying to get a meeting on the books this week, but we're still outstanding a couple responses on that. So we're going to look to the week ahead and circle back from there. But
Yeah.
got a plan. I've got a process designed for a first and second meeting so that we could bring a preliminary draft forward probably at the start of April.
Yep. And just to clarify for any members of the public listening, that is an advisory group specifically to advise Alec in his role as a town official. So because it's a purely advisory group, it is not posted meetings. So it is specifically for advisory purposes only to a town official. All right. With that said, anybody here online or in the room here to comment on anything that's not in the agenda? All right, the answer to that
No.
is no. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, would somebody like to
The second?
All right, so here in a first and a second, non-debatable, calling a vote, Mr. Steiger,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
and the chair is aye. We are adjourned at 7:43 PM.